Hey, hello, fantasy players. This is Justin. I got a special episode for you tonight because my co-host Josh and I were chatting earlier today, and we over the last several episodes, we've kind of been trying to think of a direction to take our show. Um, as some of you know, this is episode 10, so we've been at it for a little bit, but not very long, and we don't really have a brand or a niche or anything like that. It's mostly just some guys talking fantasy football and having fun. But here recently, we've tried to steer the show more towards fantasy football 101, like fantasy football for beginners. And it just so happens, crazy enough, I got a text a couple of days ago from a good buddy of mine here, Justin. You can call him Jut. I used to work with this man. He's genuinely one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And he sent me a text and asked me if I could do a show for fantasy football for dummies in a way, kind of fantasy football 101, somebody that, for people that are just now getting into the game, haven't really done a lot of research on the game, don't have time to do their own research. And he's got several questions for me. So I thought, what better time to announce our new direction for the show than to have Jut on here himself to ask me several questions. Jut, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. I'm so nervous. So nervous to be here.
Nervous to be here for all of the live followers that are not on right now. Because
I'm so nervous. I'm gonna keep it together though.
Probably sent the wrong link, so right now it's still just you and me, so we're good to go.
Okay, I feel a little better.
But just so you guys know, his name isn't actually Jut. His name is actually Justin Ham. And like I said, I used to work with him at the Youth Academy. As you can see, he has a very majestic beard that everybody is very envious of. He got it tightened up today just for this show.
For the show, yeah. I blended the sides in. Looks good.
I'm honored and I'm privileged. Hey, one other cool thing about this show is that since he's the one with the questions, I didn't even have to create any show notes for this show. So you're not going to see me looking down at my phone or looking down at my notes. You're going to be getting questions from Justin to Justin, but it's the other way around this time. So I guess we could just get right into it. But before we do, is there anything that you want to kind of promote for yourself? I know you're not really into the fantasy football community as well.
No. So first off, thanks for that. But fantasy football is really kind of new to me. I piddled around with it for the last couple of years and lost a little bit of money in the process. But for the most part, I'm a hunter. So I do a lot of coyote hunting, deer hunting. I do have my own YouTube channel. Some buddies and we came together on it. It's Moonlighting Outdoors, Moonlighting with no G. So if you guys ever want to check that out, there's written in the banner there. So if you guys want to hop on there and look through some cool hunting videos, it's a lot of nighttime hunts, night vision stuff. So be fun for you.
Yeah, and it's pretty wild to watch too. I've watched your videos, and the cool part, they're only normally just a few minutes long, so it's just really fun, easy watching. And I haven't hunted since I was in high school, probably, and I mean it's been a long time. Justin told me he's going to get me out on his land and do some coyote hunting with him sometime soon. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to have to go out and get relicensed and everything. I haven't fired a weapon since the National Guard days, 2006 probably. Well, no, that's not true. I have fired since then, but not much. Not much, but I'm looking forward to it.
The more you shoot a gun, man, the longer your beard grows.
Oh, is that the trick?
That's the trick. You heard it from me myself. Yep.
All right. Well, fortunately for you, the more you play fantasy football, the thicker your hair gets. So.
Oh man, shots fired. Okay.
Absolutely. Hey, also, guys, don't forget to follow us at Engage8 Fantasy. I'm always on there. I'm always active. I check the messages at least twice, sometimes 3 times a day. If you have any general questions, again, like I said, we're keeping it fantasy football 101 as best we can. Let's see.
So I have my first question for you. How do you come up with that name, Engage 8?
So Engage 8 is a style of defense in the NFL. So Engage 8 happens whenever it's an all-out blitz. A lot of times it can happen at the goal line when the defense is pretty confident that the other team isn't going to throw the ball, or maybe they're just desperate and they need to get a sack, and it's the only way to fight back to win the game. That sort of thing. So you got your opponents up against the wall, or you're up against the wall and you're the one that's trying to make something happen, just trying to create something. Or maybe the other team has absolutely no passing game and you're confident that you can keep 3 in the backfield, and you can engage 8 to blitz. So it's kind of our style, just an all-out blitz.
That was a pretty generic question then, something I should have known.
Yeah, no. Like I said, this is Fantasy Football 101.
Yeah. So is it okay if I go on here? I want to know something.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you actually start to prepare, like to put a team together?
Okay, so
my first steps. Taking notes.
Okay, so first off, it says I've got a message here from Josh. It says that he loves the beard, man. Have to be up really early for work, but he'll catch us later. So he'll probably do the editing for the show later on. But
awesome.
All right, so sorry about that. I just wanted to read the comment there. But, so what did you say? What was the question? How do you prepare?
Yeah, how do I start to put together my team? Because I've not done anything since.
So there's a lot that goes into that one little question. For instance, there's like 3 different main styles of fantasy football when it comes to forming your team at the draft itself. So once you get signed up for a league, you're going to want to look at the league settings and the league rules. And the league settings, league rules, or chat with the commissioner of the league and ask him what style draft it is. It could be an auction draft. In an auction draft, you get a set amount of dollars, and it's usually just fake money. You've already paid your entry fee for the league. Then you get, say, 500 fake dollars or whatever the amount is to build your team. And then you're battling at auction style with other guys in the league to try to form your team. So if that happens,
that's the one I've done. I think it was maybe on Yahoo or something.
Okay, yeah,
one of those. It was, and you literally had to wait for everybody to.
Right,
like 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, typically I would advise you stay away from auctions if you can in the beginning until you start to get a little bit more used to fantasy football in general. Another style is a linear auction, and that's more like how the NFL does it now. If the Dolphins have pick 101, the very first pick in the very first round, then they're also going to have 201 unless they've traded it away. So the very first pick in the second round. So it kind of works the same way. If a team, whoever picks 12th, is going to pick 12th again the next round. But that's typically only for rookies only drafts and dynasties. You're not going to see a lot of redraft that way. Redraft means that it's just for this one season. Okay. So like we have a redraft league. My main league with my buddies is a redraft league. We draft this year, and then we're going to draft again next year, a whole new team. Dynasty means you draft this year and you keep those players forever unless you trade them, drop them, or whatever. So in the dynasty leagues, you'll have your linear drafts that go from the 101 to the 112 and then start back over. Whoever had the 101 will have the 201.
Okay.
But for you, for a beginner, I would highly advise that you only strictly do redraft leagues at first and do the snake drafts. A snake draft is where you start with the 101, you go all the way to the 112. Then from 112, the guy that picked 12th in the first round will now pick first in the second round. And then it snakes back to the guy that picked first, and he'll have the last pick in the second round. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
I've actually done one like that.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, I thought you and I had joined a free league just so I could try to help you out before, but we're both pretty busy with work and stuff at that time. I kind of failed and dropped the ball in helping you out with that league.
What was that on Yahoo?
That one I think was on NFL.com. I don't really play it very often, but anyway, as far as actually building your team, it really depends on the style draft. Now, if you're leaning more towards the snake drafts, again, it could also depend on where you're picking at. There's a lot of different ideas on where to go to when it comes to that. But one thing I'd highly advise if you're trying to figure out how to draft based on your draft position is to check out fusionffb.com. My boy Josh Buttrick has a website, and he has a bunch of articles on there. And in those articles, you'll see a basic idea of how to draft. So, like, his way of thinking is a lot of times if you're picking from the end, like 12th, you're going to have the 12th pick and the 13th pick. You're not going to pick again until it gets all the way back around to the 24th and 25th pick. So you can't really, you kind of have to throw out ADP. You know what ADP is?
No, you're going to have to help me out.
All right. Average draft position, right?
Okay. Yeah, I did know that. Yep.
Okay, cool. So like if the average draft position is, say, 210 and you have the 201, so if the average draft position for a guy, let's say, I think probably 210 was probably Marlon Mack last year. He was probably right around 210. Let's say you really wanted Marlon Mack, like desperately, then you would probably have to take him at the 201 because you're not going to pick again until the 312. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you throw ADP out the window. You don't really have to follow that guideline. Instead, you're going to follow the guideline of what is the structure, the settings for this league. Is it going to be PPR, which means points per reception? Do you get extra bonus points for rushing? So do you get a point every time the guy gets the ball to rush? So unfortunately, you got to kind of watch those settings and then hit me up. Anybody out there wants to hit me up at Engage 8 Fantasy or my personal Twitter is at JustinFF_. And I can also answer those questions individually as well. But personally, for redraft, if it's one quarterback, that's another thing that's important to watch for. One quarterback or two quarterback. If it's one quarterback, I'm waiting until as late as I can possibly wait to draft a quarterback. Just because of the position isn't nearly as important if you only start one quarterback, right? So, like, if you have to start two running backs and you take a quarterback early, especially if you're not picking again until another full 2 rounds before it gets back around to you, there's not going to be anything left at running back. So the position scarcity is key there. If there's 12 teams and you're only starting one quarterback, it's only 12 quarterbacks that's starting, and there's 32 teams, right? So, I mean, simple math, we have 20 quarterbacks still left out there. Most teams.
Is that personal preference, or is that what everybody does?
That's what the majority of most people do if you want to win.
Okay.
So you'll notice, if you pay attention, you'll notice the guys that are going to take Pat Mahomes and Lamar Jackson in the first, second, even third round, a lot of times they're fighting with their second running back or their third wide receiver or their flex position. Flex is where you can start running back, wide receiver, or tight end in one position. Because they're bumping down the guys that they should have taken up higher. So, like, there's 32 starting running back. Well, actually, most running backs are by committee, so they're not even going to get the ball a heck of a lot like a quarterback will. The 32nd best quarterback is still going to get the ball on every single play. But the workhorse running backs out there, there's only like maybe 6 or 8 of them every year that get the ball on the majority of the downs are going to be gone early, and then you're stuck. Same with wide receivers. Some teams have so many wide receivers that get the ball so often that you can pick them up off of waivers with little to no effort. Does that make sense?
It does. Now, I'm glad you told me that, because the first thing I would have done is draft a quarterback.
Right. And honestly, people that are new are going to draft guys that they hear about. And when you're on ESPN or NFL.com or, anywhere, you're going to see Lamar Jackson and you're going to see Pat Mahomes and whatever quarterbacks, because they're the faces of the franchise most of the time. And that's who guys are going to draft.
I didn't realize that I could learn everything about fantasy football with one question.
Well, because I continue to talk and I don't shut up and let you ask that. I'm not used to being the interviewee.
Yeah, you're doing a great job, man.
What else you got for me?
Well, some of the stuff you broke into a little bit, but help me understand the the stats, the football stats. So when I'm trying to go through the draft somebody, like I said, I'm a hunter, I'm a dad, I'm doing all these other things. I don't have time to, let's learn. Tell me about football stats. What am I looking for?
So you don't have time to sit and rifle through every single stat and make a spreadsheet and create all this other nonsense. Well, here's the cool part. There are a ton of websites out there that have all the spreadsheets for you. And again, that fusionffb.com that I just mentioned, but also clockdodgers.com is another good one that I really like. Obviously, you can go to ESPN, or you can go to just type in the Google a player's name and his stats, and it'll take you to a reference page. But just to give you a general idea, I guess what you really want to look for for wide receivers, you kind of want to look for targets. That's a big one, because a receiver that has historically gotten a lot of targets is going to continue to get a lot of targets. I mean, once in a while, there'll be a crazy thing that happened where he got traded to a different situation or whatever. But so focus on targets for wide receivers. That's the big ones. And also, you'll find on a lot of sites where they'll have yards per attempt for running backs, or yards per target for wide receivers. Also, you want to look for target share. What that means is like Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. He runs the ball a lot. He doesn't throw the ball quite as often. He did a lot more this past season, but let's say his tight end is getting 25% of the target share. Well, even if he's not throwing a lot, 25% of not a lot of throws, say 300 passing attempts, is still going to be a lot of targets.
Right.
So some websites will show target share. Again, most of the stuff you can just Google, as far as Googling in that particular thing, target share for Mike Evans or whatever. So then also, teams with really good running games usually tend to have a little bit more efficiency in the passing game. Like, for instance, the Vikings. Let's say the Vikings. You got Dalvin Cook there. They're probably going to run the ball a heck of a lot. And although I don't personally like the quarterback, Kirk Cousins, I don't really like him personally very much. He is going to be a little bit more efficient because the other team might keep more on the run. Does that make sense?
It does, yep.
So he might have fewer attempts, but they might be completed a little bit more. So with quarterbacks, I most of the time I'm going to try to go after running quarterbacks, and I'm going to go after them late as best I can. If not, then if there's none left, then I'll go after stability. Your Matthew Staffords that have been there for several years, and that will probably still be there late in drafts, or Matt Ryan or something like that. In redraft, which is what I'm trying to steer you to as the beginner, I would try to stay away from anybody new, rookies, second-year guys, as best you can, unless you have a really good feeling about them based off of something you've read. Just because you don't have a lot of knowledge in that player, you don't really want to take a chance,
The whole rookie part, that's one of the questions I have going, further. I have jotted down here to ask you about later. But
okay.
How do you keep up with all these rookies when you're going through learning about who to draft? And it brings me back to, I think it was 2 seasons ago that you and I it was about 2 seasons ago we had that.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about all these rookies. How do you keep up with all that, man?
I mostly listen to a lot of podcasts.
Engage 8?
Like a lot of podcasts. Well,
yeah.
Engage 8 isn't really a podcast. I do have another one. It's at Toilets to Titles with John Shep, and we have some guests on there that are really knowledgeable, and I listen to some of their shows as well. But for the most part, like obviously you have your big ones. The fantasy footballers have a podcast.
Right.
They're probably one of the most popular out there, and they're also goofy and funny, so it's entertaining. It's not just a bunch of knowledge getting shoved down your throat and that sort of stuff. There's a lot of other good ones. I listen to the Clock Dodgers all the time. I wish I could remember Neil's, or not Neil. I should have actually taken notes. George Reed has one. I can't remember the name of it. If anybody's on here and you can remember George Reed's for me, I'd like to give him a shout out. But actually, I could give you a list of my favorite ones right here. My producer will edit this part out later.
Okay, cool.
All right, so BDGE, as in big dogs gotta eat. I also like In This League. And then Brian Wentworth also has you know what? I think I'm probably gonna have to. I'll probably have to send you a couple of these later because there's a couple other great shows out there. I've already listened to them for today, so they're not fresh on my list. They've already deleted for today, so unless it's saved on there, I won't remember it. My brain is fried. But yeah, so I listen to a lot of podcasts, but also I pay close attention during the NFL draft. So during the actual draft itself, I try to pay attention to what the commentators and the analysis or the analysts are saying about the analysis and the landing spots and that sort of stuff. So like Justin Jefferson is a wide receiver out of LSU that I liked in college, but I didn't really know how well it would fit depending on his landing spot. And he's got all right on. Thanks, Josh. It's Sleeper Wire for George. Check out Sleeper Wire.
Sleeper Wire.
Yes.
Sleeper Wire. Okay.
Right on. But yeah, so I listen to what they have to say. I'll go and read a lot of their articles and that sort of stuff. I get on these websites that I've told you and I read on the articles. Again, you not having a whole lot of time to do all this sort of research makes it difficult to learn about these rookies. But I guarantee you, no matter how busy you are as a dad and as a recruiter and all this other stuff that you do, you're going to watch football on Sundays, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So that's why you should probably try to stay away from the rookies and second-year guys as best you can until you get to know them in their landing spots. If somebody really stands out, you'll hear about them when you listen to those podcasts when you're driving to your next location at work. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. And make sure you pick up Miles Sanders wherever you can this year.
That's a name I need to write down, huh?
Miles Sanders, yeah. Just for you, Josh. My buddy Josh that's watching. We have a constant discussion about that on our message board that we have. What's your next question?
I mean, hell, you're flying through them. But so let's talk about what league I should join. Like, I know that it was DraftKings. I played in there. I downloaded the NFL app. I got on there. I think I've even messed in Yahoo. What do you recommend? DraftKings was good for me. So many players. I lost I won a couple bucks here and there, but I lost it pretty quick. Tell me something.
I'm not a big fan of DraftKings personally.
You told me that before.
Yeah, I've read a lot about Autobots or auto teams, I guess you could call it, where they create teams themselves and throw them in there. And also, like, I kind of feel like I've caught them kind of cheating myself a few times and kind of cheated me out of some cash. And but I'm not a big fan of the daily fantasy as much. I'll still play from time to time just for the fun of it, or I like to enter their free leagues they have on there just to try to win money off of nothing. But they do have a sports book on there now on DraftKings. I believe it's called the sports book. But on that one, you can actually bet for stuff like who you think is going to be the rookie of the year, who you think is going to win the division from week to week. Yeah, from week to week. Let's say the Colts are playing the Patriots. You can bet on who's going to have more passing yards between Phillip Rivers and Jarrett Stidham. that sort of stuff. So that's a lot more fun for me, just because I like to play the safer bets that have the lower payout, just because I do it for enjoyment.
Right.
For you, for now, personally, I would try to stick with the free leagues on NFL.com or CBS.com, CBSSports.com, Yahoo.com, those sort of things. They're all free leagues, just until you really get your feet wet. Also, what's really cool, and I know I mentioned George Reed earlier, but he does a lot of charity leagues where going into it that you're not going to win any money. It's all going to charity,
Sure.
which is really cool. So I like to join a lot of those when I can, because then there are no losers, right? You have the opportunity to win a league and have some bragging rights, because most of these leagues will have their own chat groups. I'm in like 20 or 30 chat groups. So, and that's where I get a lot of information too. Like, a lot of times I don't have time to keep up with them, so I will back out and not, I'll kind of ignore it, whatever. But I'll hop on whenever I need something or whenever I see something that interests me, and I can hear them talk about fantasy football. But
Sure.
each team typically has its own chat group, and you'll have those bragging rights against those guys, and you'll get to know them, and you'll start joining other leagues with them and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
So once you get your league going, let's talk about trading. That's something I've always struggled with.
Okay.
I don't like to trade.
Can you maybe give me an idea of what part of it you struggle with?
So I'm getting the leagues mixed up a little bit, but there was one where I had people that would message me wanting to trade, and they would ask for different people. So tell me, just, do you trade? And when you do, like, how does it work?
So there's kind of a couple of different schools of thought on trading. When it comes to redraft, I kind of either I'm winning or I'm losing. There's usually not a middle ground for me.
Right.
If there is a middle ground, you're kind of in no man's land, and you want to make a move to try to make your team better, but you got to look at what you have. So if your team isn't doing well, because let's say you have one good running back, but you have 4 good wide receivers, and you can only start 2 wide receivers or 3 wide receivers, then you need to make a move to trade a wide receiver to get a better running back in your second position. But a lot of times it just comes from discussion and from talking back and forth with somebody and saying, hey, yeah, I understand that you want Devontae Adams because, he's an amazing wide receiver, and I've got these 3 other good guys I could be starting, but I need running backs, and it doesn't look like you have anything to offer at running back,
Right.
or whatever the case might be. You just got to communicate and talk with them. And if you're winning and they're trying to trade with you, it's because they want what you got. So don't be afraid to ask for more.
Right.
If you're already losing and you don't have anything to lose anyway, and you're desperate, then I would say you're the one. They're the one in the driver's seat. So you got to do what you can to try to shake things up. And if it helps your overall starting lineup, and you have to sacrifice depth to do that, then it's probably worth the risk. Outside of that, it's kind of a difficult question, because every trade can mean so much. Like there's so much that goes into each trade that it's kind of difficult to answer, to be honest with you.
I understand, but that kind of reminds me too, kind of playing off of the whole trade thing. When I was playing last year, I had a couple of times when I had a really good team, but I had somebody that got injured and I didn't keep up with it. So then I played a few games with somebody who was out on injury. How do you keep up with all the injuries? I mean, is there something that'll tell you? Are there any cheats for that?
Well, during the season, typically almost every league, I don't think I've seen a league that doesn't. There'll be a little injury mark next to the player's name, whether it be like a red cross or a D for doubtful or an O for out, that sort of thing. So you can usually scroll over top of it or click on the player's name and get an update then. A lot of them aren't completely up to date. So that's why I like to play in leagues in multiple different websites, because some of them will be updated quicker than others.
Okay.
But also, I'm in so many leagues personally that I have to keep a spreadsheet of how many players I have, like shares of. So like I've got, 8 shares of, what's the one that's killing me now? Devin Funchess. I've got like 8 shares of Devin Funchess, and it's miserable now because I thought the Colts were going to have a big plan for him as their number 2. Turns out they had a better plan with Michael Pittman in the draft. So, yeah. So, but anyhow, yeah, I forget where I was going with that.
I saw you wave to somebody. It threw you off.
Yeah, it's a neighbor driving by. Oh yeah. So if I have a lot of shares of a guy, or if I'm kind of bordering on whether or not I want to start somebody, I might go to Google and get the most recent updated information from them real quick before I set my lineup. But the key is to always be active. So I understand that you are extremely busy, but we definitely always want to be active. And what I mean by that is maybe before you go to bed each night, just kind of run through your lineup, because you're only going to be in 1 or 2 leagues at first. Run through your lineup really quick and just kind of get a quick rundown. Check your trade offers. Look for trades yourself if you need to. Check the waiver wire, which is a whole nother thing. We probably don't have time to get to the waivers tonight. We're at 30 minutes now, but just always be active, even if it's only for about 10 or 15 minutes a day, just to check out your league and read all the updates. And if you click on something and it's the exact same update as yesterday, move on to the next player. Or if Phillip Rivers has the same update as yesterday, then Google it and see if there's a more recent update somewhere else, and just go from there.
Perfect. So, in your opinion, it would be kind of crazy for us to not talk about the pandemic and all this. How is this going to affect fantasy football and NFL in general? I know that there's a lot of us that are just dying for something new. Football would be awesome to have right now while we're all sitting here locked up. Nothing. Well, things are starting to open up, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
What do you think's going to happen?
I don't really know. Obviously, none of us really know for sure what's going to happen. I do know some sports are kind of starting to open up now. My nephew's rec league baseball gets to open up this weekend, so that's really cool. They're saying stuff like basketball games or baseball games or whatever are going to be set up so that families can sit together, but they have to be so many feet apart from the next families. They're lowering the number of people that can be in the audience and that sort of stuff. In my mind, though, with the NFL, these guys are at each other. Like 6 feet is one thing, 6 feet from each other, but these guys are hitting each other in the trenches. They're being tackled by each other. Even if they're just yelling and screaming in the pile or in the huddle, they're spitting all over the place. It's not really a very conducive place to help get rid of the virus. So they say that it takes about a year to a year and a half to come up with a vaccine for this. And this was really starting to get noticed in December in the U.S., more like January, February. So I'm sure they started on a vaccine then, and I'm sure they're putting a ton of extra money and resources into it. Maybe it gets a vaccine a little bit sooner than normal. That's my hope. Fortunately, the NFL, Roger Goodell has already said that he's okay with bumping the season back in order to get a full season in. So that could potentially mean we don't start football till November, and then we have like an April or May Super Bowl. In my mind, that would be freaking awesome. Like, I would love that. Not so much on the front end because we'd have to wait even longer, but could you imagine having a Super Bowl in, like, say, late April, early May, and then a combine late May, early June, and the draft late June, and then come August we're having training camp again. Like, that would blow my mind. I would love to see something like that. But realistically, I think they'll probably try to do something to get it going a little sooner than they probably should, and hopefully it works out. I read something in a Colts forum earlier today that they're talking about making the players wear masks and stuff. I don't see that happening. Like, it's so difficult for those guys to breathe, especially those big boys up front. They look like they're struggling breathing when they have the oxygen on their face.
Oh, that'd be terrible. I know I played high school football, and that was a long time ago, but there's no way I could be a grown man trying to wear a mask and play football. Those guys that'd be doing too much. So another
thing too that I would be worried about is have you seen the way that they have to do testing with the cotton swabs?
Oh God, that looks horrible.
Yeah, the stick was this long, and then
Like,
and all
touches your spine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like the back of your brain. And I can't imagine, like, if they're gonna continue to play through this, these guys are gonna have to be tested regularly, right?
Yeah.
So like probably twice a week, a couple days before the game, a couple days after the game, throughout the week for practices. They're gonna get fever temp tested, all this sort of stuff. So, I mean, I just don't see players agreeing to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
too much of a risk to spread it. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I don't know.
So
we probably have time for one more, and then we're gonna shut this down. I don't like it for too long.
So, have you ever heard of Mansfield News Journal? Anyways, Knightstown, the local school here, they shared this, and it says it's talking about what we're going to do with high school sports, for example. It says a football player cannot participate in a team drill where a single ball is handed off or passed to another teammate in contact with other players is prohibited. There is also no sharing of tackling dummies among multiple athletes. So tell me, how is there going to be a football season?
Maybe they'll make it soccer.
Yeah, and it says a volleyball player cannot use a single ball that others touch or hit in any manner.
Is there a deadline on that?
No, it's just somebody did a screenshot and posted it. But I mean,
say that site again, or the newspaper again.
It's Mansfield News Journal. Mansfieldnewsjournal.com.
Well, I mean, that also could be depending on the state as well. That might be like a state regulation, you know?
Yeah, but it was just, we're talking about the pandemic and football, so I thought that'd be pretty interesting to bring up.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I haven't heard that one yet. Yeah,
so I know you're a Colts fan, but in your opinion, who's the team to beat this year?
Actually, you know what? I've got this right here because I'm planning another show with a buddy here pretty soon. I have the Ravens over the Saints, but I also have the Chiefs in the AFC title game and the Niners in the NFC title game. Pretty much going chalk. I mean, not necessarily the rest of my playoffs weren't chalk, but I'm going to kind of save the rest of those as a teaser for the next few episodes that I do.
Sure.
But for now, that's chalk. But I also haven't really completely tightened it down just yet.
I know this past season I really enjoyed watching the Browns. I know my sister's an avid Browns fan. I enjoyed watching the Browns this year. I know it's hard to listen to.
That.
I'm a Colts fan, but it was fun to watch the Browns play this year. And then
like they were already trying to social distance from each other back then.
Of course. But I heard you in one of your last podcasts or film or whatever it was I was watching, and you were talking about the Miami Dolphins. So when I was a kid, I loved the Dolphins, man, back in the Dan Marino times. So I'm excited to see the Dolphins play this year too.
Yeah, sorry, I don't remember the Dan Marino times. That was before my time.
Of course. Yeah, it goes with his bald head, right?
Yeah. No, so, I mean, I'm excited to see what they have to do. Right now, they're really good on paper, and they're young. But the Browns were good on paper last year, too, with Odell and Jarvis and Chubb and Hunt both there. Everything looked good on paper. Maybe it just takes a little while for them to gel, and they'll play better this season. Fortunately, now in drafts, keep this in mind, too, those same players that were highly touted last season and drafted high are going to be able to be bought for a lot cheaper in drafts. Instead of taking Odell in the first or second round, you might be able to get him in the third or fourth. And then if he has a bounce back season, because he was hurt last season, maybe they change things around. So, and conversely, it's kind of the same way with the Dolphins as well, because they're also young or rookies and second year guys. A lot of people don't have faith or confidence in them yet. So you get those solid players at the beginning of the draft, and maybe you can pick up Tua extremely late, or pick up Preston Williams really late.
That'd be awesome.
Just pick up their guys really late, and and get him for value that way. That's what you're drafting for, is drafting for value as best you can.
Right.
All right, man, we need to wrap this up. If you have anything else for me, I'm gonna stay on with you a little bit after we shut this off. But
Okay.
quick, I just want to remind everybody: make sure you check out Justin and his skills on Moonlighting Outdoors, the YouTube channel. Again, they're like 3 to 5 minute videos, and you get to see his skills in action. It's actually pretty cool. And I'd also like to see how good he can be at axe throwing, because I have a really good feeling about that.
Oh man. You don't even know.
Check us out at Engage 8 Fantasy on Twitter. And then, of course, you've got our YouTube channel here. And my personal Twitter at JustinFF_. So thanks a lot for watching, those of you that stuck it out with us. And those of you that are going to be watching on YouTube tomorrow when we post it. We're going to add our intro and stuff. Pretty excited about that. It's going to be new. So have a good night.